Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fight Addicts. Get ready to explore the past, present, and future of MMA with your hosts, Seth Oliver and Ben Korn.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to episode number 3 of the Fight Addicts. On this episode, we'll be recapping Gaethje versus Barboza, Conor McGregor's retirement, different news from across the MMA world this week, and our predictions for UFC 236, Holloway versus Poirier 2. As always, be sure to check out the blog at thefightAddicts.com and stay up to date with us by following at The Fight Addicts on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And be sure to subscribe to us on whatever platform you're listening on and leave us a 5-star review. My co-host, as always, is my good friend, the one and only Mr. Benjamin Korn.
What is up, everybody? Just wanted to say that today we're feeling pretty good because we called the main event in last night's little contest with Justin Gaethje involved. Don't sleep on Gaethje. That's all I can say.
Do not sleep on Gaethje. He's probably the most savage fighter in the UFC, I would say, especially after his performance last night. It's hard to make an argument.
Well, it was interesting because you got to see the battle of the two dudes in that weight class that you don't want to trade leg kicks with. Trade leg kicks.
And then they opened up with that little mini leg kick war.
Yeah. Yeah, it was beautiful. That's how it should be done, yeah. Mm-hmm. And you could tell that Gaethje was more willing to exchange in that, I felt, than Barboza was.
He seemed a lot more confident throughout the whole thing. He came in. Even my dad was talking about how focused he looked throughout it. Coming into the cage, he just looked very ready to take on Barboza.
If you let him move forward on you, you've got serious problems. It doesn't matter who you are.
Right. So just real quick to kind of recap the event. This was the third UFC event in Philadelphia. The attendance was 11,123, and the gate for the event was $1,102,542.16. The bonuses of the night went to Gaethje and Barboza for fight of the night, Jack Hermanson and Paul Craig for performance of the night, with both those being submissions. So, Ben, whenever you kind of look at the the landscape of the lightweight division, there's a lot of fights.
Wait a minute, hold on. Hirschman got performance of the night?
Yeah, Hermanson, the guy in the co-main event.
Yeah, for that choke?
Yeah.
On Branch?
On Branch, yeah.
No.
You don't think he deserves it?
No. Not at all.
Why not?
Because that Josh Emmett knockout happened. Where he just flatlined Michael Johnson, made him just, stiffen up. Yeah, man. That's much more pleasing and viewer-friendly than that choke. To me,
you would still give the submission. You would give it to Craig over Hermanson.
Yes, yes.
Right.
That was a nasty triangle. The fact that he was able to bait him the first time, I was like, "Oh, that was slick." He almost got him, and then he just did it again and got it better. And I was like, "Wow, that was high level stuff." I enjoyed it, and it was at minute 14:30 that he hit him with that. He had been having that dude grab the cage and hang over the cage. There was a lot of fouls and illegal things that were done in the fighting the other night.
Do you know, was Keith Peterson the ref of that one? Mr. No Nonsense?
Yes, yes, he was. And they kept saying that he was going to take a point from him, but he never did. Thankfully, it didn't matter. Thankfully, he just got tapped. So I thought he was going to get his arm broken.
Yeah, that was nasty. I remember what you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was kind of scary. It reminded me of Tim Sylvia and Frank Mir, where the arm just kind of pops out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But Herb's not there.
Right.
Peterson's going to... Herb let him break it. Herb waited until... you obviously don't stop it until something breaks or someone taps. But the second that he sees it pop wrong, he stops it. There's that classic Ronda Rousey early in her career where the girl told Kim Winslow, I think it was, the female ref. I think it's the female ref that lets this happen. But
she's not very good, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was her.
She tells the ref, the girl who's fighting Rousey tells the ref that she's somehow double jointed or something. Lies to her.
Mid-fight she tells her that?
No, ahead of time.
Okay.
She's I know that she's a judo person and she's going to try and armbar me, but unless I tap, don't do anything because, like, I'm double jointed. And it's like, that girl's arm will never be okay after what Ronda Rousey did to her. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. Just, like, nasty. Because she doesn't tap until she snaps. She's got it hyperextended, and then she bends it, like, she takes it and puts her hand under her armpit to crank it further, like a heel hook. And so it's going to, like, start snapping through the skin, at which point she taps. But, like, the ref should have saved that girl reconstructive surgery. But, yeah.
Yeah. So back to Justin Gaethje real quick. So when you look at the landscape of lightweight right now, there's a lot of fights booked because we have Holloway versus Poirier coming up. Conor McGregor gets retired this week.
That's all right.
We think. Iaquinta versus Cerrone got announced.
Did it?
Yeah. You didn't know that?
No.
Yeah.
That's
Raging Al's fighting
disappointing.
Cowboy.
That is disappointing because that was I knew that you would ask me what was next for Justin Gaethje.
Right. That's what I'm
Yeah.
getting to.
Yeah. And my plan was, I noticed in his little post-fight, he was like, "You guys jump me with Cowboy?" And I was like, "Oh, why don't they just do that? Cowboy versus Gaethje. That's a good banger right there."
That's a really good fight.
Yeah, because he thinks that he's above him. Like, Gaethje clearly is like, well, I'm better than Donald Cerrone, and Donald Cerrone doesn't take too kindly to people who think that they're better than him.
Right. Especially Dad Cerrone now. He's fighting for danger.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah. Dad Cerrone is not to be messed with.
Right.
But neither is Justin Gaethje, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Was Cerrone a dad when RDA put it on him?
I don't think so because that was 3 years ago, right?
Okay.
Like 2015, around that time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the kid's like 2, so maybe 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, that fight's booked. Iaquinta versus Cerrone, and then Kevin Lee's going up to 170 to fight RDA, and then Justin Gaethje was ranked 7th, and Barboza is number 6.
RDA really should I don't know what's RDA's nickname?
Ralphie Dos Nachos is what Colby called him.
Ralphie Dos Nachos?
Ralphie Dos Nachos.
Okay. Well, I think his nickname should be Gatekeeper now. Like, he's just...
Well, Robbie Lawler, kinda, for welterweight. I would put both of them up there.
Who's... Lawler and Askren are going to fight again? Or no?
Tyron Woodley's fighting Robbie Lawler next.
Tyron and Woodley are rematch. I knew it was a rematch. I was like, it's a rematch with a wrestler. Okay. Woo.
Yeah, a lot of fights got announced this week.
That's nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So who do you think wins that one? I got to ask you now that we're talking about it.
What, Lawler and Woodley?
Yeah.
I would assume that Woodley's going to win because Lawler has kind of... It's not the same Lawler that was fighting Rory McDonald. Like, that guy kind of died somewhere along the lines of the Condit fight. Like, he died in the cage, and now his corpse soldiers on and gets bulldog choked by Askren. But it can also Death Valley drive somebody.
Yeah,
exactly.
He looked good before he lost.
Exactly. He looked wonderful before he lost.
Yeah.
But he also
lost.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know? So, I mean, any version of Robbie Lawler is dangerous. But remember, Robbie Lawler lost to Lorenz Larkin.
That's his low point.
Yes, that is his low point. Robbie Lawler should never lose to Lorenz Larkin, in my opinion. I mean, that's not to throw anything off on Lorenz Larkin. I'm just saying it's Robbie Lawler realizing he needs to fight at 170 because Lorenz Larkin, although Lorenz is at 170 now too, but I think that fight happened at 185 if I'm remembering correctly. That they were both.
Was this back when Robbie was in Strike Force?
They were in Strike Force, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. So, in my mind, after you kind of look at all the scheduled fights, I think that I would say that 2 fights make sense. I would say if Tony is accepting that he's not going to fight for the title, because Dana said that Poirier versus Holloway, obviously it's for the interim belt, the winner fights Khabib. So Tony's not getting that fight whenever Khabib comes back. I think it'd be pretty fun to see Tony and Gaethje fight. But if Tony's not willing to accept that and he's still going through all of his problems, I would say Gaethje versus the winner of Cowboy and Raging Al is probably the next number 1 contender spot for after Khabib fights the winner of Poirier and Holloway.
I just don't see how Al Iaquinta has a path to becoming the number 1 contender. Like, I hate to be that, like, I hate to be so negative about, like, what I see happening there, but it's like,
So do you think that
Cerrone
he
is hit or
Cerrone?
miss. Cerrone is always hit or miss. Like, there are fights that I've watched him where he should have, like, on paper, he should have won. And I've also watched him on paper where he should have lost. Like, I've watched him come in as a favorite and get stomped, and I've watched him come in as an underdog and clean shop, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, you never know what you're going to get with Cerrone. Now, Dad Cerrone, he's
we're a little more
undefeated,
like, stable
right?
with him. Right.
Yeah. So, like, if he comes in like that, then he shouldn't have a problem with Iaquinta. You know?
How good do you kind of rate Iaquinta after the Kevin Lee victory? Because to me, that was a pretty big victory for him. I think he looked good in that fight, and I had Kevin Lee, like, going into it, I thought that Lee would beat him, and that would kind of put Lee up there in the top tier. So to me, that was kind of a big statement from him.
Absolutely. But again, I remember people at their worst.
What's
And I
right now is
remember-
worse.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even put a name to it, but I've seen him. I've seen him do poorly, and I've never really been that impressed with him. He wasn't the most impressive guy coming out of Serra Longo. I don't have all my Iaquinta facts lined up. He's a Serra Longo guy, so which means he has jiu-jitsu. Yeah, him beating Kevin Lee is definitely his shining moment.
For sure.
So Al Iaquinta, again, I remember everybody at their worst. And the thing that I remember about Al Iaquinta was that Michael Chiesa, him getting choked. So, and Chiesa is a dude who overachieves, usually, unless you bring his mom into it, in which case you're going to be able to hit him in the face at the press conference and then beat him whenever you fight him, which is one of the more embarrassing things that I've seen. But, yeah, Al Iaquinta, man.
That always cracked me up because he didn't really even say anything like bad about his mom. Like he literally just said like, he said, "I know your mom's gonna be there" or something. Like, it wasn't even like,
"I'm your mom's favorite fighter." I thought that was like, or something like that. Like,
from what I remember, he was just like, "Yeah, I know that blah blah blah, and your mom's gonna be there." And he was like, "Don't you say anything about my mom."
Yeah. It was that level. Like, it was one of those like, I'm everybody's favorite. I thought it had something like, "I'm everybody's favorite fighter," and like. Chiesa was like, "Oh, no, you're not." He's like, "I'm your mom's favorite fighter." And he's like, "Don't you talk about my mother." At which point he got hit in the eye perfectly. Like he stepped up on Kevin Lee and he got punched. It was funny. Anyway.
So what do you think's next for Barboza from here? Because he's very like win 2, lose 1, like win 3, lose 1. So it's like he's never like close to title contention, but he's still always like a threat. Would you say that he's a gatekeeper?
He's a good guy whenever you need it. Like, yeah, he's a good gatekeeper. He's always dangerous. You know, if you need a good person to be an action fighter, there you go.
Yeah, I would say that a good fight for him would be the loser of Cowboy and Iaquinta. Like, let Gaethje fight the winner, and then let Barboza fight the loser.
Yeah, and see, like, that's the kind of fight that I see, like, Al Iaquinta is going to win. Because Al Iaquinta's never been knocked out.
He'll beat Cowboy?
No, he'll beat...
Oh, you're saying
I thought
he'll
you were
lose
saying
to
that,
Cowboy.
Yeah, he'll lose to Cowboy, so he'll fight Edson Barboza.
Right,
That's who we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, like, he'll get all chopped up, but he'll wind up grinding him. You know, that's kind of the way that I figured that would go.
All right, so hypothetically, Cowboy beats Iaquinta.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say they make the Gaethje fight.
Yeah.
So who wins Gaethje Cowboy?
Gaethje. Absolutely. Gaethje wins.
Even against Dad Cerrone?
It's nasty. I kind of, like part of me wants that fight to happen, but then part of me doesn't, just for, like, the good of both men involved. Like, I don't think there's a lot of give in either of those two dudes, and I like both of them. So I don't want either of them to just like, oh, that took some years away from him.
We'll be reading about him like 10 years from now. Like,
yeah, Cerrone won't remember
situations
his
and
won't remember his kid, you know. But I think that Gaethje gets it done. And I mean, I've been wrong. I remember when they said it was going to be Alvarez and Gaethje, and I was fully behind Gaethje, and then
I was too in that fight. I remember that.
he got dropped.
Speaking of Eddie did not have a good Saturday night.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Did you watch that fight?
I saw a highlight of it.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it, but
Well, he was fighting a Russian guy named Timofey Nachikin.
okay. Yeah. Okay.
So a lot of people were kind of assuming that he was probably on some steroids during their fight because one doesn't drug test. And do you know how their weight
Do you
class
mean that
works?
Eddie was on steroids, or
No, they were
the
saying
dude
that
who
the Russian
knocked
guy
him out?
was.
Who cares? Yeah. Okay. Sure. Whatever. Stay in the UFC if you don't want that to happen.
Right.
I don't know what to say. Like, it's sort of like when was it one where Huerta came back to? I think it was one. Can you soccer kick people in one?
I don't know.
I think you can soccer kick people in one. I think it's the correct rule on that as well. But that's one of the moments that, like, that's a highlight that I kind of have to, like, I cringe every time I see it, even though I've watched it multiple times. It's Roger Huerta. He's been doing movies and stuff and not training, and he's fighting some guy in one, some Asian dude that he didn't think was going to be a challenge, I guess, and he just gasses hard, and he winds up on all fours, kind of trying to reach for legs to, shoot on him, and that guy lines up for a 50-yard field goal and kicks him in the mouth so hard. It's devastating, man. It's a bad one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everybody should watch that if you haven't seen it. But
And it's Roger Huerta just in one. Do you know the guy's name that he's
it's
fighting?
Roger Huerta in Asia against a no-name. That's what makes it even sadder. It's like somebody you've never heard of, and you're like, oh, that's bad.
Yeah. Well, I watched the Eddie Alvarez fight, and I watched Mighty Mouse's fight. And in both of them, Mighty Mouse wins by submission in the second round. But neither one of them looked great. Obviously, Eddie didn't because he lost. But even in Mighty Mouse's win, it seemed like some good competition for him.
Who was his opponent? Who was Mighty Mouse's opponent?
Yuka Wakamatsu.
Never heard of him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like, that's the problem. Like, I watched Ben Henderson. I watched a bunch of Ben Askren in, like, highlights from his one fights. And, like, that was the problem. It was like, well, I don't know how good this guy's supposed to be that he's getting tagged by. Because Ben Askren had a fight that was very similar to the Lawler fight in the fact that, like, before he got a hold of someone, they sprawled on him, put it on him. And then I think there was, like, an illegal strike. There's, like, a no contest happened in it. I think. Everybody's screaming at their iPod right now. But, iPod. Nobody's using an iPod.
Mm-mm.
Man, I'm old. Yeah. That's how I used to listen to podcasts, folks, with my iPod, not with my phone. There's not enough space on your phone because I would download stuff. There was no Wi-Fi. This is crazy. Technology, man. But, yeah. What were we talking about? Technology? Yeah, so one is always an interesting concept in that, like, a lot of times it's just someone with a name that you can't pronounce fighting someone that you know. So it's not like, oh, well.
You don't have anything to base
It off of. There's no barometer for their opponent. Like, I've seen stuff like, there's something called Super Fight League that I hope somebody laughed at right there because, like, that was just terrible. It was in, like, Dubai, and the main event was, one of them was Lashley and James the Colossus Thompson.
The Colossus?
Yeah, James the Colossus Thompson. He lost to Fedor's big little brother, and let's see, who else destroyed? Oh, Kimbo. His ear explodes against Kimbo, and he kind of, like, attacks the referee. He's out on his feet and all, like, crazy-eyed. Yeah. But he beat Bobby Lashley by split decision in, like, this thing in Dubai. And the undercard on it, I remember, the thing that I remember was Phil Baroni is doing the commentary.
The best ever?
The best ever is doing commentary. And at one point, a dude gets behind a dude standing and puts him in, like, the $1 Million Dream, like the wrestling hold. And, like, Baroni flips out, and he's just like, oh, he's got the sleeper. He put him in the sleeper. I just remember that. Like, he's laughing because it's like, this is ridiculous. Like, because the other guy, like, had no idea what to do when someone with no hooks, no nothing, no body control is just behind you like a Steven Seagal movie. He's going to snap your neck or something. He gets him. He gets him with the sleeper. Yeah.
So do you think that the skill of the fighters in the UFC is still levels above those in other promotions?
Yes.
So even after stuff like Eddie losing and Mighty Mouse, even though he wins, like I said, it was kind of a struggle. I would say a little bit for him to win.
In one, it's leaps and bounds still. Like, there are still stars over there, like people who could hang, but the rest of the card is way below the UFC. Bellator has some legit dudes in it. Like, the depth isn't there at all. But there are some people at the top end of the food chain in Bellator, and there always have been, whether the UFC wants to admit it or not. It used to be Eddie Alvarez was the guy who was over in Bellator that everybody was like, And I remember the first time I saw Eddie Alvarez was he fought Roger Huerta, because it was Roger Huerta coming back to MMA from acting. He'd just done Tekken, that wonderful career move that he made there. This is Iron Fist. I think that was his only line, seriously. Yeah, so he comes back and he fights Eddie, and I knew who Eddie was from like Sherdog, from like message board type thing, but I didn't watch anything out of outside of the UFC. And it was on MTV2, excuse me. And it was going to be Roger Huerta versus Eddie Alvarez, and I told my roommate Christopher Reeves, he said, he was like, "What are you watching?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to watch this guy who's supposed to be the underground king get destroyed by Roger Huerta, this guy that I know from the UFC." And it went completely opposite to that. Like, it wasn't even just it was methodical, and there was no questioning, like, who the better striker was. Who the better, like, hands fighter was, which was the thing that Roger was saying, that he had been in Mexico training his boxing in, like, Mexican boxing gyms, and Eddie just tuned him up on the feet. It was just disappointing. But, yeah, there are always people outside, outliers that could hang, and, like, it used to be Ben Askren was a great example of that. Like, how good is Ben Askren? Would Ben Askren be able to out-wrestle GSP? We'll never know that. There's your next comeback. If Askren somehow gets the belt undefeated, I feel like GSP comes back and beats him, wrestles him, you know.
Mm-hmm. And obviously Fedor's the biggest example of that. Like, how good was he? Yeah. Because we never saw him in the UFC.
Right. You know, and you never have anybody, like, Kane never fought Zulu Zinhao. Like, Kane never got to fight some 7'8" guy that doesn't really know anything, but he's a freak. Like, I'm sure that Kane would tune him up, like, just beat the brakes off of him mercilessly, the way that Fedor did, the way that anybody would if they are a trained heavyweight, you know?
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah. So earlier this week, early in the morning on March 25th, Conor McGregor tweeted, "Hey guys, quick announcement. I've decided to retire from the sport formerly known as mixed martial art today. I wish all my old colleagues well going forward in competition. I now join my former partners on this venture already in retirement. Proper pina coladas on me, fellas." Do you think this is a real retirement, or is this kind of a flashback to 2016? The thanks for the cheese catches later tweet where he retired?
When I first saw it, I definitely thought it was just some kind of, like, you know, publicity stunt, basically. But I don't know. I mean, the more you think about it, the more it makes sense for him not to fight again. It's only a losing proposition at this point.
Right.
Because what fights are really winnable? Like,
yeah, because lightweight's so
they're
stacked.
all super dangerous fights. I guess you could say that the Diaz fight is probably the most, like, the trilogy fight is probably the most winnable fight for him.
And probably the most realistic, too.
Yeah,
it's the one that's the only fight that Nate would come back to.
And it's the only one that really makes sense if you look at it as a sport. Like, okay, so Conor is, like, When was his last? Okay, so he wins against Eddie to take the belt.
Right, and that was at UFC 205.
At UFC 205.
Right, which was December of 2016.
He styled on someone in December of 2016, okay?
Right, and then he loses to Mayweather
He
in
loses to
2017.
Mayweather in 2017. But that doesn't count. That doesn't matter.
Right.
But then
But there's
he
so much to
loses
that,
to-
though. Like, completely changed his life from that fight.
he proved that he could be self-sustaining outside the UFC. Yeah, absolutely.
And then he came back October of 2018, was UFC 229 against Khabib.
Okay. Yeah. So, like, I mean, I feel like everybody that wants him is probably going to beat him. I mean, like, and that's, maybe he beats Tony. You think he beats Tony?
I think that he beats Tony. All
Yeah.
my bias aside for Conor McGregor, I think that he beats Tony
If Tony stands with him, he beats him.
for sure.
But I don't know that Tony doesn't ankle pick him.
That would definitely be the thing to watch out for.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
like,
would say I would put my money on Conor. I would say Conor beats him.
see, like, if you're trying to make, like, a Conor comeback tour, you're probably going to have to do it through, like, if I'm going to mark the trajectory to him getting another title shot, I'm going to have him fight. His comeback, he's going to have to beat Diaz. Like, and that's your most winnable fight, I feel like. Because I feel like Diaz is, much like his brother, is pretty much done with this is his life. You know? Like, I mean, I'm certain he's going to come in shape. I'm not going to say that he's going to gas. But I don't know that he has the real motivation other than that he wants to beat up Conor McGregor and prove a point. So that, again, it's a super dangerous fight, whoever you give it to. But, like, if you put Conor out there and he beats Diaz, then you could give him somebody like Gaethje, and that'd be fun.
That would be fun.
But I also feel like it goes like him against Poirier and him against every striker that's like, oh, there he is, and then they go to sleep. So, like, I feel like he would probably beat Gaethje. I feel like Conor probably beats Gaethje.
Yeah.
Like, one-shots him. No offense. I mean, like, maybe he has to, like, three-shot him because he's super thick-skulled. But, like, you know,
Yeah.
kind of like Eddie. Or like Forrest Griffin and Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
Where he just kind of beats.
Like, paws
it's
at him.
not so much. Yeah, it's not so much that he's like, ooh, that was like he broke his jaw on that one. It was just he's just getting like tased
Like a very
basically.
precise shot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's those stunning, weird like freeze you up shots on the button, perfect shots. Yeah, so I feel like that'll probably be what he do, and then you could give him whoever the champ is,
Yeah.
which is probably Khabib, and he probably gets killed again. And
Yeah.
hopefully there's a bigger brawl. Hopefully, like the Dagestan. Hopefully you do it in Dagestan. And the
Oh, yeah, you have to.
Dagestani,
You
the
have to.
Dagestani warlord is just like sitting in a throne next to Dana on high. And then whenever Khabib cross faces him into submission, he just tells him to kill him in the ring. That's the end. It's the end of UFC, everybody. And World War III begins with Dagestan.
So there were a lot of talks for Conor and Cowboy to fight before him and Quinta got booked. Who do you think wins that fight?
Conor, probably. Unless they go to the floor. If they go to the floor, I think Cerrone would tap him. I think like
Yeah,
Cerrone would
probably.
triangle him or something. Like I just have this feeling that like if there was some kind of weird reason that they went on the floor, that they would scramble into a position that Cerrone would just have something locked around his neck. And it'd be like, oh, that's bad.
He
And
just like locks in the triangle and like makes eye contact with his son, and then he just squeezes.
yeah. He
Harder
makes
than
eye
ever
contact with Dylan Dennis. His son makes eye contact with Dylan Dennis. Dylan Dennis and his son make eye contact across the cage. And then like somehow the baby jumps out of his mother's hand and drop kicks Dylan Dennis. Just like Khabib did after Daddy triangles him. Yeah. It's wonderful.
Yeah. You love Dylan Dennis, don't you?
I mean, you sent me that link last time of him talking to Ariel, and it was too much, man. I can't listen to that guy talk for very long at all. I don't know why.
He honestly doesn't talk like I thought that he would. He's a lot more like, I don't know if I would say soft-spoken, but I thought he would try to be more aggressive, kind of, in his speech.
You expected him to sound like Kara Parisian. Right? I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. Like, bro, do you know who I am? Yeah. And let me just say, I'm a huge Caro fan, but that wasn't called for.
Yeah.
As far as people outside the organization, like, if you look at that welterweight tournament in Bellator, just like they got done with their heavyweight tournament in Bellator, that was kind of a joke, but it sort of legitimized Ryan Bader as a really, really, really bad man. Like, I feel like Ryan Bader, outside of John Jones, is right at the top end of the 205. Like, he's a problem for everybody at 205.
So you think he would be you for sure think he'd be the top contender in the UFC?
He'd be right there at it, you know? Like,
do you think that he beats Gustafsson?
Did he ever fight Gustafsson before he left?
I don't think so. Maybe he did, but I'm not remembering it.
I just remember John Jones, when him and John Jones were both undefeated, like seeing people at their worst, and the nastiness that John Jones just like dominated him. And he has that Tito loss. You know, I mean, that's kind of yeah. Like, well, I mean, like, don't sleep on Tito. And that's true. Don't sleep on Tito.
Yeah, I mean, he was a legitimate contender in his time for sure.
Yeah, and don't sleep on that guillotine. If he gets it on you, you're toast, man. Like, there's no, Yeah, so Bader, though, has had bad moments, and he's had really good moments, though. You know, like, he killed Fedor, which I know Fedor is an old man, but, like,
it's still Fedor.
He beat Mitrione to get there.
Did you think that Bader would win the tournament?
I thought Mitrione would win the tournament going into it, honestly, because I was just like, he's as athletic, he's an NFL guy, but he's an actual heavyweight, and Ryan Bader can make 205. He is the 205-pound champion in Bellator. So, like, I figured that unless you're John Jones, you shouldn't be able to beat up heavyweights. And he did.
Yeah.
You know? And, I mean, like, Mitrione had that. Like, Mitrione's had a couple of times where he's shown his takedown defense skills. Yeah. So. But he couldn't against Bader. Bader got him good. And Bader killed King Mo in the first round of that thing. Like, I know that most people are like, killed King Mo. Of course he killed King Mo. Like,
yeah.
But, like, there was a time where King Mo was the Strikeforce 100 and I think he was the Strikeforce light heavyweight champion. I thought he was the 185-pound champion. I don't know. I could be wrong. I know he was willing to fight at heavyweight in Strikeforce because he killed the rapist guy in Strikeforce, Mike Whitehead. King Mo had always had these problems with his back, and he had finally gotten it fixed before he got into that tournament. So I was like, this is going to be a really good wrestling match between him and Ryan Bader. And he just got flatlined. One-punch knockout on the first. It wasn't even an exchange. It was just Ryan Bader jumped in and punched him in the face in the first 20 seconds and killed him. It's like, well, I don't know how good or bad he was because it was like the first time he'd really been 100% since like college. And no way to tell.
Gotcha. So it was announced earlier this week that Cain Velasquez will make his professional wrestling debut.
That's
and you
weird.
Didn't know this when I told you that because he had sent out a tweet. Yeah. So what was your thoughts whenever I told you?
Well, it makes more. Well, my first thought was, okay, so he's gonna go like do something where him and like Travis Brown have a feud or something because he's with Rousey. Like, he's been involved in like the WWE stuff. Like, you laugh, but apparently I don't follow current wrestling. I only know about old wrestling. Sort of like it used to be with UFC. Like, I didn't follow everything 100% for a while. But I've just seen that like Ronda Rousey apparently in the WWE universe is breaking the fourth wall and all this stuff and saying how she's a real fighter and how she could kill everybody on the roster if she wanted to. And it's like, well, yeah, I guess. And, you know, she's married to Travis Brown. So, like, apparently her and Travis Brown, like, beat up WWE security or something backstage. So he's involved
for
with
real?
he's involved with like the screenplay, the teleplay that is Ronda Rousey's, WWE life.
Gotcha.
So like I didn't when you sent me that, I was like, "Oh, so they're going to do like a fake WWE scripted match between like Travis Brown and Cain Velasquez. And hopefully it'll be like over the paternity of Rousey's baby." That was what I was thinking. But then you said it was AAA, and I was like, "Oh." At first, the racist part of me was like, "Oh, that makes sense," because the Hispanic, he's going to go to the Mexican Wrestling League. But then I remembered what I had heard about the UFC Latin America seasons, and what I had heard about that was like his Spanish is way worse than Verdum's. Like he's from here. Like his grandparents spoke Spanish, or his parents spoke Spanish. I don't know, but like it's his second language by a lot. According to people who hear people speak Spanish every day, he's not like, he can understand everything you say and he can talk to you in Spanish, but he's never going to be the most eloquent guy on a camera, like back and forth.
So he's
but
kind of like Cody Garbrandt when he talks in Spanish.
Yeah.
And that's all the more reason to get brown pride tattooed across your chest.
I was thinking more along the lines of Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva speaks English.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy. Like that's English. Like he's happy. Yeah. I understand that,
That's
but
normal.
Like I really don't understand. Like I think that there is something lost in translation with him sometimes. Because I just don't believe that he really believes that BJ Penn is the best. The BJ Penn is the best.
I just always remember Chill like calling him out, being like, "This man knows perfect English, but he always like has his translator with him."
He does
great press conferences.
Yeah, he does know. He can understand.
Yeah, he just plays to it.
Yeah, man. So, AAA is the biggest Mexican wrestling promotion, and Mexican wrestling is more important than American wrestling. Like, think about how big wrestling got in the 90s and the late 90s. When there were the Monday Night Wars and all that jazz.
So who were the main wrestlers during that? Because I don't know hardly anything about wrestling. Would that be Hulk Hogan?
Yeah, well, see, there you go. Yeah. Hulk Hogan in his second form, not in his red, white, and blue American form, but the black and white evil Hulk Hogan, Hollywood Hulk Hogan. But at the same time, Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Undertaker, Triple H, those guys are over on Raw or WWE. Hogan jumped ship to WCW. All the while in Mexico, there is AAA. There are a couple of different Mexican wrestling organizations, but AAA is Lucha Libre, which is Mexican wrestling, and it's doing, crazy like soccer stadium level shows. Like there are people on like Mexican soap operas in masks and stuff. Like, the Mexican wrestlers are there, and they're legitimate, like, public figures, things like that. So, and it also didn't die as hard as it did here. Like, AAA is still a big thing there. And
gotcha.
It's not that WWE isn't a big thing here, but he's basically going to go to WrestleMania in Mexico. And that's cool, but then I remembered the thing about him not being able to speak Spanish that well. And I was like, I wonder how that's really going to play over there. I mean, I guess he's legit and everything, so everything's good. But, yeah.
Do you think he'll have a lot of success there?
No. I think that this is I hope this is a one-time thing. Mexican wrestling is dangerous, man. He doesn't need to do that very often. He needs to be like I come in once in a while. Because those dudes take that seriously. There was just some guy that got hit in the head with a big piece of concrete, and I don't know if he died or not, but it was part of like some kind of Mexican wrestling. He was supposed to throw it at him, and he was supposed to hit him in the back, but he hit him in the head. But the game plan was to hit him in the back with a giant.
That's what I was about to say.
It's like a cinder block, man. And I was like, well, that guy's probably gonna die. Like, and that was part of the plan. Like, that was a scripted out like this is what we're gonna do. Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing it had to be. I guess. Unless that guy just decided he was going to kill someone on TV. But yeah, so stuff like that is happening right now in Mexican wrestling. Like that happened in 2019 in Mexican wrestling. So be careful. Yeah. Kane.
All right, let's get into our predictions for UFC 236.
Let's.
All right, so UFC 236 is headlined by Max Holloway and Dustin Poirier. The first fight, Poirier wins. Was it mounted armbar?
Yeah, he
Or
mounted
mounted
triangle armbar.
Gotcha.
He has him in a mounted triangle, and his arm is sticking out, and he's able to bend it all nasty. Yeah.
So right now, the last that we looked up, the betting odds are -240 for Holloway and +190. No, I'm sorry. Yeah, -240 for Holloway, +190 for Poirier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put my money on Poirier. Put my money on him. I'm telling you.
So you think that Poirier's going to win? That's who you're calling right now.
Yes. I'm
And
calling
you think
it.
that he finishes Holloway?
It finishes. This thing finishes. That's a definite. That's what you should put money on. This thing finishes. Unless it's like 10-1. Because this thing finishes.
Yeah.
You know, I bet you it probably will be like -400 or 500 for it finishes, because it's going to finish.
Yeah.
Someone's going 9-9.
Yeah. I would say this is probably the fight that I'm most excited about all year. Gaethje Barboza is close. I was very excited about that fight, but I feel like this one's going to be for sure a potential like fight of the year candidate. Because see, Gaethje and Barboza didn't go that long.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like this one's going to go longer than that. Like, we're going to see the second or third round, but we're not going to see. I'm with you on that. It definitely won't go all 5.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad it's 5, because it could be something special
Right.
if it gets past the normal. Although, you know, I'm sure Dustin Poirier would tell you it didn't take him a round to do it the first time, right?
Yeah.
So,
Do you think we're going to see Max point to the middle and then they stand and bang?
no. They'll do
'Cause
that
he's
on
already
their
gonna be
own.
finished.
They don't need to. There won't ever, because that was the end. You know, that was
Yeah.
at the very end of the fight. He was like, "Let's finish it." You know, I think that they both will agree to that without having to say anything. It'll just be on.
Right. I think I'm actually going to disagree with you on this one. The more that I think about it,
That's good. Eventually, we have to
finally.
disagree. Yeah.
I thought we'd have a lot more, to be
Yeah.
honest, in the first ones, but we sided on everything. So when it first came out that they were fighting, I was like, yeah, for sure, Holloway. Because like I told you, whenever I think of Dustin Poirier, I think of that guy that's like the epitome of like the second tier, but he like never
Ooh.
makes it to the top tier.
Whew.
And then I was like, no, that's wrong. Like, Poirier's a legit contender. I mean, he owned Max in the first fight,
Yeah.
but
He knocked out Justin Gaethje.
the best is blessed. I think that Max is going to finish him. I'm going to say third round TKO, probably. I say we get past the first and the second. They probably exchange a round each. Like, Poirier win 1, Max will win 1. But in the third round, we're probably just going to see like a wild exchange where Max just catches him. Nobody goes unconscious or anything, but
I feel like Poirier puts him out in first, like under 2.5 rounds. Yeah.
that's what you're putting your fake money on.
Yeah. Yeah. If there's some kind of prop that I can pick that, like, Poirier finishes him in the first for, like, plus 700, I'll do that. I had a fake prop on the Pearson-Desmond Green fight because
On the
when I
Gaethje
looked at
Barboza
the
card?
on the
Yeah.
Gaethje Barboza card, I saw that Desmond Green, who the only thing that I know about Desmond Green is that he beat up the old school 135 greatest guy in the world, Miguel Torres. He killed Miguel Torres on a Titan FC card that I saw back in the day. And so I was like, okay, so he's good. Of course, that's not a gauge of anything because Miguel Torres was so done by the time he fought Desmond Green. But I knew that Desmond Green was a good fighter and that he was probably going to beat Ross Pearson. But Ross Pearson was like a plus 330 underdog. And then if it was going to go under 2.5 rounds, it was like plus 3 something. Like it was supposed to be Desmond Green gets on top of him for 3 rounds, wins a decision. That was clearly the way that Las Vegas thought it was going to go. So I put down $100 that fake money. This is not real, by the way. That Ross Pearson would beat Desmond Green inside of 2.5 rounds, and it was like I would have won $1,500. And it half came true. Like if you just picked the under 2.5, because Desmond Green finished him in the first.
Yeah, it was
blew
in the
him
first.
out. Yeah.
Yeah.
I told my wife that like there should be a meme of like him, Ross Pearson, up against the cage trying to get back to his feet while he's just getting pounded in the face, and just trying to stand up. I was like, this is like a perfect like metaphor for like how things are going. You know, like how's your day? And then you just show that. You know, it's like I just want to stand up. Oh no, I'm getting beaten down. If you just lie down, that'd probably be the best.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
So why don't you bet real money? Have you ever bet real money?
Let me tell you my gambling story.
Yeah.
This is not.
I'm sure a bunch of people don't listen to podcasts where the guys talk about like betting fake money. So
Yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
that makes us unique, but also there probably needs to be like a backstory as to why
Okay,
it's fake
so
money.
the year that. So it winds up being. This is kind of convoluted, but you got to place it. The year was the year that the Patriots went undefeated and then lost in the Super Bowl to the New York Giants. Okay?
Okay.
So the NCAA championship game was on, and Ohio State was playing somebody from the SEC.
Florida.
Whoever it was, the SEC team blew them out.
Yeah, that was Florida because that was Tebow.
And
It was like 41-14.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was like 14-0, right?
At one point.
Ohio State started scoring first.
Ooh.
They scored. They got ahead. Okay, so
Okay.
so here's the moral of the story. I had a bet with my roommate. I was like, I bet you $10 that Ohio State will win the national championship, because he was big on. You're sure it was Florida?
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Florida.
That makes sense because he was a Florida guy. Yeah. So he was like, "No way, man, no way. If Florida doesn't win, I'll give you 20." He was like, basically, it's 2-1. He was like, "I'll give you $20 if you give me $10 if Ohio State wins." And so I say, I'm texting him as the game is going and Ohio State is winning, and they're up by 2 scores. And I text him that, and he's like, $100. He was like, you bet $100, and I'll put up $200 if Florida doesn't win this game. And I was like, okay, you're on. So then they get run. Like it's like 41-14 is the final score. Like Florida just destroys them. And then I'm going to pay him, and he's like, how about this? Double or nothing, Ben. I'll give you the AFC. It wasn't even to the it was at the playoffs, but it wasn't the final yet or something, because it was to where I either was going to get the Peyton Manning Colts or the undefeated Patriots against whoever the NFC team was.
Yeah.
You know, these two historically great football teams against whoever the NFC was. And he was like, and if the NFC wins, you don't have to pay me anything, but if they win, you have to pay me $200. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. And then just think about that football game. Just think about watching that football game and understand that you've never bet money before, but the universe is going to prove a point to you with the most ridiculous, like, New York Giants, like some of the catches in there, just ridiculous. Yeah, so I never bet money again after that.
That's a good story.
And when I paid him, I met him at a Cracker Barrel in Nashville. Because he was like, meet me at the Cracker Barrel. And I was like, Adam, why are you at Cracker Barrel? He's not a Cracker Barrel guy. But he was like, I almost said, just keep your money, but I feel like I need you to learn this lesson. I was like, yeah, thanks, buddy. So there's that. That's why I bet fake money.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the co-main of UFC 236 is Kelvin Gastelum versus Israel Adesanya. And currently the betting odds for that are Kelvin Gastelum is a plus 180 underdog and Israel Adesanya is a negative 210 favorite. Going into that and knowing those odds, and you're a guy that's high on Kelvin.
Yeah. I'll pick Kelvin.
Yeah. Do you think that he finishes him, or are we going to go to a decision in this fight?
I think he somehow like gets on his back and chokes him.
Oh, a submission.
I think that he subs him. I think that Kelvin somehow gets on his back and subs him.
I wanna
Maybe
see the
knocks him
odds for
down and
that.
subs him. Yeah. Kelvin, if you watched the season and the fights, he was good at finishing with a choke from taking someone's back, like knocking him down and then getting that back and choking him. He had good speed to which he did that, and good like instinct to finish it. Like sort of like if Vitor has you hurt or Vanderlei has you hurt, they just flurry on you. It's like if Kelvin has you hurt and down, he jumps on your back and gets that choke, and that's good. That's really good. But what I was going to tell you about Uriah was on that season. He talks about he's trying to think of a word for a chef, and he's like, like a professional cooker. Like, what is that called? And they're like, a chef? And he feels like they're like bullying him. He constantly goes into this like how he's bullied and stuff.
Yeah.
But so yeah, he doesn't have a nickname. So I was just like, yeah, he should be the cooker. Absolutely.
All right. I will be right back.
Awesome.
I'm about to pee my pants. I've been trying to hold it and hold it.
This is this is story time here, folks. Yeah, man. Uriah Hall was part of one of the saddest fights whenever he just destroyed Chris Lieben, and Chris Lieben quit on his stool in between rounds. Just bad stuff. And Seth had to step out for a moment. So you're just left here with me. Trying to think of what I should talk about. That's why we have Seth here, is to keep it from just being a rambling mess. I mean, this has been pretty much a rambling mess. I promise we will get it together next time. I will not be as discombobulated as I am this time. We've had a week off, or I have not had a week off. My wife had a week off because of spring break. And we originally were going to go to St. Augustine, but somehow plane tickets and did not get booked the way that they were supposed to. So, and then I got a kidney stone, which is always good. And yeah, so I spent a few days away from collecting taxes, but then I got back to it, or I'm going to get back to it tomorrow, which I don't look forward to at all. And Seth is back. Hello, Seth.
I'm back.
So, what other than I'll pick Kelvin, and I'll pick the other underdog,
Poirier.
I'm going to parlay them and make $1 bajillion when they both come through.
Yeah, I'm going to pick the favorites, and I got Max and Adesanya. I think that the thing with Adesanya is I think his range is going to be the biggest factor. Because if Kelvin lands, Adesanya will be knocked out. I just don't think he's going to be able to on him.
Yeah. I feel like it. Yeah. Yeah, sure.
I feel like it's just a bad matchup for Kelvin.
Yeah.
I feel like Whitaker's almost a better matchup for him than Adesanya.
I want to see like Adesanya fight Yoel Romero. I know this is a recurring theme. Basically, I want to see Yoel Romero
versus like
fight everyone. Yeah, and I want to see Yoel Romero from
he's like the
7
ultimate
years
gatekeeper.
ago. Kinda. He's also like the disputable champion.
Do you think that he beat Whitaker?
It's hard to say, man. I need to watch that fight
Yeah, you just went
again.
back and rewatched UFC 225.
It's hard to say. I don't know. I'm being completely honest, and I didn't get to the main event, man.
Oh.
I got like right before the main event, and I was like, I'm gonna watch
Who was the co-main for that?
Holly Holm, right? Yeah, Holly Holm wrestling the giant girl. Is Holly Holm at 145 wrestling? What's her name? Seth, why did you do this to me? You had to ask me, like, what's her name?
Sorry.
And there are definitely people yelling at me. She's Australian. She was the Invicta champion, and she came over, and Holly Holm just derailed her completely. Like, it was interesting because she was winning the stand-up. Megan Anderson.
There we go.
Yeah, Megan Anderson. Like, when they were standing up, she's so much bigger that she was just winning. And so Holly Holm was like, no, I'm just going to take you down. You can't stop it. It's nice.
So you got to watch the greatest of all time fight on that card. The very first fight.
Artem fought on that card?
And CM Punk.
Oh.
And fought Mike Jackson.
That's what I want to see.
Yeah,
Yeah, I did. And I was going to ask you about that. Like, Mike Jackson has a tattoo that just says Black Power on his chest.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's not that I'm saying that you're not allowed to have a tattoo that says Black Power. That's more power to you, you know? But
yeah,
I don't know, man. At some point, it's going to be like, this could cause problems down the line. Is what I'm trying to say. It's a slippery slope.
Right.
We already had that discussion with Kane, you know,
Yeah, and
with Brown Pride. Yeah. If Kane ever went to prison, he'd be security threat grouped. Like, there's a gang in prison called Brown Pride. Like, if he had that tattoo, he would have to associate with them. There's no way that he could. Yeah, he probably would get in trouble for having that tattoo and not being associated with them, other than the fact that he's the heavyweight champion of the world. So I think he'd get a pass.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's one of those questionable, like, well, okay. Sorry, everybody. Next week, I will not ramble as much. I will stay much more on task.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, there wasn't a lot of, like, news this week. Oh, I mean, there was big news with Conor retiring.
Yeah.
But it's like, other than that, some fights got announced, but we don't really want to predict those right now. We need to wait till the time of their card.
Yeah.
So we're just kind of left with McGregor retires and K makes his pro wrestling debut.
Yeah, that's about it, right?
Great week's lineup right there.
Yeah. So, question. Did we ever figure out, like, I know that Dana got an upgraded contract, right? He's done a contract extension for 7 years.
Right, yeah, with ESPN.
With ESPN. So he's going to helm the ship for another 7 years until the ESPN deal is done.
Yep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the news. So do you think that 7 years from now there's going to be somebody other than Dana White running the ship? Or is he going to be like Bob Arum and just be there until he's 90 years old?
7 years from now, I see Dana still being there.
He's Vince McMahon. He's just going to do it until he dies.
Yeah.
Okay.
I kind of get that vibe from him. Because, I mean, the dude loves it. From everybody that I've ever heard talk about it, like, he absolutely loves doing what he does. And he's up doing business at, like, 1 and 2 in the morning, like, calling people and stuff.
Yeah, but, like, a part of me feels like there's going to be somebody who just, like, plays the stuff that he put out there openly, like the video of him berating Loretta Hunt from Sherdog, where it's just the worst, like, I mean, like, homophobic, profane, misogynistic rant that you can possibly go on. And it's like, he apologized for it, and at the time, there was not a major television deal, so it's like he's not going to fire himself because he's the man in charge of everything.
Right.
But, like, now, you're kind of beholden to a television network. Like, you can't say certain things or you'll lose your TV deal.
Yeah. Well, especially in 2019, too.
Yeah,
people
exactly.
like Kevin Hart, who doesn't host the Oscars because
right.
of a
that's what I'm saying. Like,
homophobic tweet.
Right,
from
exactly.
2009.
So if they just bring up things that I know because I was obsessed with MMA, like, yeah, like, he's done a bunch of stuff that's completely not politically correct in any way, shape, or form that has gotten people fired from other jobs in 2019. But does it matter? I don't know.
Well, while we're on the topic, do you like Dana White? I know you said that you have, like, you have mixed emotions about him.
I have a lot of mixed emotions about him. Absolutely.
Go ahead and go into it.
Well, like, Dana has a lot of qualities that are really good, but I think that, like, it's absurd that Frank Shamrock isn't in the UFC Hall of Fame. It's absurd that you could have, like, a bunch of lists that don't have Frank Shamrock in it over a vendetta that is personal. You know, like, Tito's all in that stuff. Like, Tito's there and you hate him.
Yeah.
Randy Couture's there and you hate him. Like, Frank Shamrock should be in there too. That's just That's the biggest pet peeve of mine. If you want to put like a what's up now, maybe he just had some kind of crystal ball and knew that Frank Shamrock was gonna tie animals to trucks and let them die in front of airports and be horrible. You know, it's sort of like how Joe Son, the guy who is famous for getting punched in the balls over and over again on UFC 3 by Keith Hackney.
Yeah,
where he got him in the headlock and he just is wearing him out to the groin until he taps. Like, yeah, that guy was a serial rapist. He's in jail forever now. Like, he's a horrible human. Like, the lowest form of human. Even though he's part of the team chemo, everybody's a Jesus guy carry across the ring. No, he's in jail forever. Like, he's in prison forever for what he did. And it's like, yeah, and it just so happens, karma, that of the people who I can be like, yeah, you know who I can think of that lost a fight via repeated groin strikes? Joe Son. The guy who needs to lose every fight via that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that Dana's very good for the sport. I definitely think it'd be hard for anybody to kind of bring the UFC out of what they were at without it being Dana. Not saying that nobody else could, but I think that he played a major role in that. So did the Fertitta brothers too.
He was great.
But he's a very good promoter, and he's good at what he does.
Yes. But moving forward, I don't know that someone like Scott Coker wouldn't be more suited to be an actual, like, Roger Goodell.
If they swapped roles, do you think that Dana could bring Bellator up to play with the UFC?
No. Not at this point. Unless he got 100% like sign-off control by Viacom, and he was allowed to have like that amount of money to go steal John Jones or someone, like anybody, whenever their contract is done, he's going to go offer them $1 million or something more than what the UFC can offer them. Now that you can do that, because there's not going to be pay-per-view money, right? Like, you're not going to get points off of pay-per-view.
Yeah.
That model is gone. So
and
now...
thank Conor McGregor for that.
Sure.
A good bit.
I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, you can thank him for the ESPN Plus deal?
I would say he played a part in it for that, because the whole deal would be like fighters not being able to have as much control over that and not being able to kind of like, I guess, kind of control the company in the way that Conor did, where he could kind of like pick his fights and reach that level of like mega stardom that he did.
I guess. I see what you're saying, but like, it's a bad thing for the sport whenever you have people doing that. It is a bad thing for the sport when you have people doing that. Not good. On that note, I think we'll call it.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of The Fight Addicts. Our goal is to always bring you high-quality podcasts. And if you feel like we did that, please subscribe to us and leave us a 5-star review. And be sure to check out our blog at thefightAddicts.com and stay up to date with us by following at The Fight Addicts on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see y'all next time.
Peace.